All right, y'all, welcome to the show. So today we'll be discussing how Israel bombed Gaza during the Super Bowl as they ran Stop Anti-Semitism ads. You can't make this stuff up. We have more horrors coming out of there, specific stories about 6-year-old Palestinians being murdered, 15-year-old Palestinians being murdered, ambulances coming to save the day being bombed. I mean, you would think at this late date that the atrocities and the savagery would stop. It has not stopped. It's continued. So there's a lot to say about all of that. We also have an RFK Jr. Super Bowl ad controversy. His super PAC ran an ad, and it's leading to quite a backlash, so we'll talk about that. We have Trump begging Taylor Swift to stay out of the presidential race, and we have another psychotic MAGA murderer killing somebody, killing a family member. I'm sensing a bit of a trend here with the extremists murdering usually people in their own family. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff to talk about. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and dive into it. By the way, guys, do me a big favor. Please subscribe to the channel. It helps out massively. Okay, so the other day, Netanyahu came out and he said, hey, man, we're going to order the population of Rafa to evacuate. Now, this is an absurd comment to make because there is literally nowhere for these people to go. So for those of you who don't know, Rafa is the shared border between Gaza and Egypt. And if you'll remember, early on in the bombing campaign, North Gaza was effectively wiped off the map. Palestinians were told to move to South Gaza, then Israel proceeded to bomb the South as well. And so everybody's kind of caught in this little corner of Gaza about the size of LAX airport. There's over 1 million Palestinians in this area. It's the most populated and dense place as of right now. There's nowhere else to go. And they're being told, hey, we're giving you a heads up. We're going to bomb Rafa. So this was, 5-alarm fire, alarm bells everywhere. People are looking at this like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? How can you bomb this area where, it's the remainder of the civilians in Gaza? Okay, well, then we had, you're going to love this, Biden comes out and he says, well, Israel shouldn't press into Rafah without a, quote, credible plan to protect civilians. So yet again, this is the thing that we've seen over and over, that Biden is hey, you need to do your war more humanely. Be more humanitarian with your bombing campaign. You need a credible plan for the civilians to get out. And go where? The border's shut. They can't go to Egypt. By the way, if they were pressed into Egypt anyway, that would be an ethnic cleansing. They can't go to other places in Gaza because they don't exist anymore. So what do you want? So for Biden to come out and say this, it's bullshit, because what he can and should do is say, if they drop a single bomb in Rafah, we're cutting off all their money, we're cutting off all their weapons, we're going to condemn them at the UN, and sanctions are on the table. That's how you do action that might lead to results. Instead, it's, you should have a credible plan with your genocidal campaign. What? Okay. So then we get this. Israel comes out and says, bro, we've rescued 2 hostages from captivity in Gaza. They come out and say this. And I think I saw one article that even said, no, it was actually 4. We rescued 4 hostages from captivity in Gaza. This is what they say. Meanwhile, what was actually going on the ground? Rafah was bombed to smithereens. There was, bombing that went on for, I guess, 30 minutes to an hour. Here's some of the targets that were hit. Al-Huda Mosque, Al-Rama Al-Shabura Mosque, Changer's house, I don't know what that is. There's an Egyptian house, Abu Jazar's house, Abu al-Hussein's house, Abu Rizq's house, and 6 other houses. And the Palestinian-Egyptian border with 3 missiles. Now, by the way, Egypt is also against this, and they've been warning Israel, don't you dare bomb there. It looks like they went ahead and did it anyway. So at least 50 people were killed in strikes on Rafah, and other reports say 77 dead and more than 230 wounded so far. I think this was when it initially happened. I think other numbers have now been even higher than that. But basically what happened here is they unleashed holy hell on Rafah during the Super Bowl. So, in other words, all of the United States, our attention is elsewhere, focused on the biggest thing that happens in this country from a sports and entertainment perspective, and they unleash holy hell in that moment. Again, by the way, as they're also running Stop Anti-Semitism ads during the Super Bowl. You literally couldn't make this up. You couldn't make this up. So just a wild, wild situation. It looks like, I don't know how else to say it. You guys have heard me say it 1,000 times. I'm going to say it 1,000 more, but I don't know if it's landing. This is a genocidal campaign. That's what it is. At the very least, they're trying to ethnically cleanse Gaza, and that might be too kind. It probably is an all-out genocidal campaign. And so I have more evidence to that effect for you. So the Israeli minister came out, this is Ben-Gvir, he came out and said, shoot anyone who comes close to the border. All children end up being terrorists anyway. Quote, you know Hamas, they will try us. They will send women, they will send children who will eventually turn out to be terrorists. If we continue like this, we will reach October 7th. There's no way children and women are approaching the fence. Anyone who comes close enough to gnaw to damage security should get a bullet. Otherwise, we will reach October 7th again. So just to reiterate again, they're saying, well, you can't go through the border to Egypt, can't go through the Rafa border. There's nowhere else to go inside Gaza. You're stuck in this little corner, and we're going to bomb there. But don't you dare try to go anywhere else, even though we're telling you to evacuate. It's beyond parody at this point. So this whole thing on women and children, they're trying to give themselves a justification and a rationalization for killing women and children. So here we have this. New evidence from October 7th suggests Arab women and children were among the attackers and partook in murdering Israeli civilians. According to Ynet reporter, I talked to Israeli mothers who survived the inferno, and they tell me that among the terrorists who broke into their homes, there were also children and women. One says that the terrorist who was in her house managed to unfold a table, and they all sat down to eat, while she, the survivor, put her hand over the little daughter's mouth so she wouldn't make any sound. Yes, like in the Holocaust, they shot someone else's dogs, tied some of them with a rope to a motorcycle, and dragged them while driving toward the strip. So they're saying, yeah, the women and the children, they're also terrorists. Which, again, is a justification to say, we killed women and children, but you know what? They had it coming, because we're saying they're terrorists. So this person here, Brandy Jensen, says, the journalists Israel has been murdering, well, it turns out they did 10-7. The doctors being killed, they're Hamas. The aid workers planned 10-7. The dead and mutilated children you keep seeing on the news, you'll never guess what new evidence suggests. So now I need you guys to remember, at the same time this is going on in Gaza, in the West Bank, where Hamas is not in control, they are not in power, you have stuff like this going on. Israeli soldiers filmed themselves destroying a Palestinian shop in Ramallah and posted it on their social media accounts. Again, IDF TikTok it's basically like they are trying to get Israel found guilty of genocide at the International Court of Justice. IDF TikTok is as bloodthirsty and extremist and murderous and barbaric as anything I've ever seen. They revel in their savagery. So here's what they posted. I'm going to turn off the music. So they're just destroying a shop. They're just destroying a shop. Look at this. So this is just like how they were doing controlled demolitions of the schools and universities in Gaza. Controlled demolitions of them. So I just need everybody to understand what's actually going on here. That this has nothing to do with self-defense. This has nothing to do with the hunt for Hamas. It couldn't be any more clear. So here we have, this is gut-wrenching. We have audio of a 15-year-old girl, Leon Hamadesh, who first rang the Red Crescent. She begs for help, and then she's shot to death by Israeli forces. This was after her 6-year-old cousin was killed. Okay? So, I guess, warning, I'm going to play this for you. I haven't listened to it yet. But, I mean, we're getting just tremendous, detailed evidence of assassinations of 15-year-olds and 6-year-olds. And, again, it is crickets in the West over this. You know, if you flip the script and this was an Israeli civilian, an Israeli child, oh my God, Biden would do a speech from the White House talking about how brutal this terrorism is and how we must respond to it. When it's our ally doing it, mum's the word. Oh, except, now there's an article every day. Biden's gravely concerned. There's a new article where Biden apparently called Bibi in private an asshole. Oh, did you? Now, are you going to send the asshole billions of dollars more in weapons and money? Is that what you're going to do? Yes, you are. I don't care about what you're saying. I care about what you're doing, and your policy is a total green light for Israel. Anyway, here we go. Again, just a warning. This is probably going to be hard to listen to.
Hello? Hello, مرحبا عمو. الو مرحبا. ايوه بدخل علينا. الدبابة جنبك. انتوا متخبيين؟ في السيارة احنا جنبينا الدبابة. انتوا جوا السيارة؟ الو؟ الو؟
Beyond disturbing. Beyond disturbing. Israel claims with zero evidence that Hamas's long-promised command and control center that magically moved from Al-Shifa Hospital to Khan Yunis is now under the UNRWA's headquarters in Gaza City. So you understand what's going on here? Remember, every time they attack a hospital, there's a Hamas command and control center underneath. Then evidence comes out, there's no Hamas command and control center underneath. That was a total lie. Now they're saying, actually, you know what? The secret core of Hamas is under UNRWA's headquarters in Gaza. Remember, guys, UNRWA is the branch of the UN which gives humanitarian aid to Palestinian civilians. They're like the most important group on the ground trying to prevent a genocide from unfolding. And they're like, sorry, we might have to bomb UNRWA headquarters now. Because, by the way, believe you me, they've bombed other UN buildings, including standalone UN buildings, which again dispels the notion that, like, oh, there was some Hamas thing next to it. No, some of these buildings were standalone. So the purpose was to bomb the UN. And they just lie and say, well, you're all Hamas. Remember that they came out and said 12 people of 30,000 members of this UN agency, they go, they're Hamas. 12 of 30,000. And then, come to find out from a Channel 4 investigation, they don't even have evidence that the 12 were part of it. It's totally made up. They made it up to justify and rationalize bombing every single thing in sight in Gaza. Again, I don't know how much clearer this can be made. The fact that anybody can defend any of this is mind-boggling. All right, so just to give you guys some more numbers here, Euromed Monitor has been doing some phenomenal work, this human rights group. They've been doing phenomenal work on the ground. But again, now they're slow to get out updated numbers. Why? Because they don't have the capacity or the ability to release the numbers anymore because everybody's dead and the infrastructure is destroyed. So it's hard to get good information now because, we're at such an advanced stage of the genocide and the ethnic cleansing that they don't have the manpower to really pull it off. Now, having said that, from February 3rd, they say 35,096 Palestinians have been killed. By the way, this includes people who've been caught under the rubble for a very long time, who are presumed dead. Of the 35,000, 13,642 are children. But don't worry, because, the IDF says, well, women and children are terrorists too. We've declared that. 7,656 women have been killed. And of the 35,000 dead, 30,571 are civilians, which means there's only only about 5,000 of the dead, according to this human rights group, are Hamas. Now, by the way, there's about 30,000 Hamas members in total. 30,000 in total. So if you've killed 5,000 and there are 30,000, that means there's 25,000 left. I mean, you do the math on that. How many more innocent civilians would be murked by Israel to reach their supposed stated goal of we're just trying to eradicate Hamas? Think about how many dead children and dead women and dead civilians that would entail to finish that mission. It's not even a mission that's possible to complete. In the same way, like when the U.S. waged a war on terror, we were never going to defeat terror. You're never going to defeat Palestinian hardline militants. In fact, Israel is creating more of them by the minute because of what they're doing, because of all these innocent people that they're killing. It's the best recruitment for Hamas you could ever imagine. Oh, and I'll scroll down just so you guys can pause if you'd like to look at the rest of these numbers. But 67,000 injured, 121 journalists killed, the deadliest conflict for journalists in human history. 2 million of the 2.3 million Palestinians have been displaced. And again, you could take a look through all this. 478 mosques that have been bombed. 689 healthcare professionals attacked, including 309 killed. Go ahead and look through the rest of the numbers if you'd like. It is absolutely jarring to look at this reality. And again, it's worse now than what we're getting. That's an outdated number, and they don't really have the ability to keep pace. All right, so now we have this. You'll notice in Western media, particularly CNN, they have a policy. We're not going to blame Israel for anything unless Israel says, hey, yeah, we did that. So that leads to the most tortured headlines you've ever seen in your life. Okay, by the way, there was an article that came out the other week. I think we put this in one of our previous segments on Israel, that people who work at CNN are furious because they say our coverage is massively biased in favor of Israel and against Palestinians. It's obvious. It's plain as day. There was the story from The Intercept where the on-the-ground reporting that came out of Israel and Gaza needed to be cleared by IDF censors before it got to a Western audience. Do you realize how insane that is? That's what, like, authoritarian dictatorships do, how tightly they control the flow of information. And that's what Israel's doing, and Western journalists signed on to it. So, because they have a policy of don't blame Israel unless Israel says, yes, we did this, look at what you get. 5-year-old Palestinian girl found dead after being trapped in car with dead relatives. The headlines never, ascribe intent to Israel. In fact, there was a analysis on this as well. There was a quantitative analysis on this as well. And I think it was in The Intercept as well. And it had, it was like they use words to, like horrific or slaughter. They pretty much only use those terms to describe Hamas attacking Israelis. They never use it, or almost never use it, to describe the IDF attacking Palestinian civilians. Like, the numbers are colossally out of whack. They're oozing with bias. And so Adam Johnson chimes in here. That headline has been updated to vaguely maybe sort of ascribe guilt, but it still doesn't. CNN, as a rule, can no longer just say Israel killed X until after the IDF takes credit. So we now must torture the English language to the point of parody. So they changed the title to 5-year-old Palestinian girl found dead after being trapped in car under Israeli fire. That's as good as you're going to get. Now, by the way, they've done this with like a handful of headlines because they were so absurd and so comical. There was a colossal backlash about how much they're doing journalistic malpractice, right? And so they had to change some of them a little bit while still trying to stay within the guidelines of doing whatever the hell the IDF wants and never ascribing guilt to them. All right, so now we have this. First photos of the ambulance which headed to save 6-year-old Hind. Israel's military bombarded the ambulance, killing 2 Red Crescent workers even after coordination. Spokesperson for the Red Crescent, Nabal Farsak, told Al Jazeera that in the last call with paramedics, they said that Israeli soldiers were pointing lasers at the ambulance. So, 6-year-old girl in distress, family members killed by Israel. She calls help to the Red Crescent. Red Crescent shows up in ambulances to try to help her. Israel kills the 6-year-old girl and bombs the ambulances, killing them as well. And here are the pictures. And again, look, I want to be clear. This stuff is happening every single day. Every day. Just because you don't see it in front of you does not mean it's not happening. Because whoever remains on the ground to get the word out is warning us of these horrors. And is anybody going to listen? Is anybody going to listen? Is it going to change policy one iota from the Biden White House? So this is what it looks like now. 6-year-old girl. This one blew up the other day. An Israeli journalist on TV, quote, "I don't feel sorry for the Gazans. No one in Israel should feel sorry for the Gazans. Not the grown-ups, not the elderly, not the young, and not the children. For all that I care, they could starve to death." Well, guess what, buddy? You're kind of getting your wish, aren't you? You're kind of getting your wish. Because 70% of the humanitarian aid that's supposed to get into Gaza is being blocked by Israel. You do have people starving to death. You do have people going thirsty and drinking seawater in an attempt to survive. This is the policy. This is the policy. A Palestinian journalist captured the moment of an Israeli drone attack targeting an ambulance carrying wounded residents in Gaza today. All right, again, warning for this one, but let's watch. You just witnessed an ambulance being bombed. Look, I understand that when you explain these things, when you describe these things, it almost sounds too extreme to be true. And you're skeptical. You're like, come on, an ambulance was bombed. Seriously, an ambulance was bombed. And, you know, even though it's vicious and brutal, it is good to see, no, this is actually happening. We have it on video. Look at the video. I'll play it one more time for you. There's the ambulance. You hear it. You see the sirens. Boom. Every single thing we've told you about what's going on from day one in this is true. Is true. We can't be so disconnected from it where it becomes theoretical, right? Or abstract or cerebral. No, this is happening in real time. And we have just mountains and mountains of evidence. All right, here's another one for you. A French feminist and peace advocate falsely claimed on French TV that 67 different Hamas members, their sperm was found inside an Israeli released hostage. The video got 2.3 million views. Now she quietly admits it was a lie, but C News still hasn't taken that video down or apologized. Here's one that is just a gut punch. Israeli forces execute Bassem Sleiman Kadeh, a Palestinian with disabilities, near the school of Al-Adwa in Khan Yunis, and then threw his body on the side of the road. Palestinian with disabilities. Killed by Israel. I'm sure they'd say he was Hamas. I'm sure that's their dodge. Israel is forcing an esteemed Gazan doctor they kidnapped to walk on all fours and eat from a bowl on the floor like an animal and even put a leash on him, according to another doctor who was detained with him. This is coming from Dr. Mohammed Abu Salmaya. He's the head of Al-Shifa Hospital. And he explains what's going on here. I shudder at the thought of just how much torture is going on. There are thousands of Palestinian hostages, political prisoners. I cannot wrap my mind around how much torture is going on in secret. There's already been reports of it. I'm sure that's just a tiny inkling of what's actually going on. Here's another one. Quote, yes, let them starve to death. We will not leave Gaza. On Netanyahu's platform, Israel Channel 14, the amount of hatred in the Israeli right wing toward Palestinians is astonishing. The program titled The Patriots surpasses the level of fascism and Nazism. So, every day you get comments like this. So here's an update from the U.S. perspective. Iraqi armed forces announced termination of U.S. mission in the country, citing last straw overnight drone assassination attack on a vehicle in the middle of traffic in a civilian neighborhood. So here's the official response from Iraq. American forces have repeatedly irresponsibly all the actions that would undermine the established understandings and hinder the initiation of bilateral dialogue. It conducted a blatant assassination through an airstrike in the heart of a residential neighborhood in the capital, Baghdad, showing no regard for civilian lives or international laws. By this act, the American forces jeopardize civil peace, violate Iraqi sovereignty, and disregard the safety and lives of our citizens. Even more concerning is that the coalition consistently deviates from the reasons and objectives for its presence on our territory. This trajectory compels the Iraqi government more than ever to terminate the mission of this coalition, which has become a factor for instability and threatens to entangle Iraq in a cycle of conflict. And our armed forces cannot neglect their constitutional duties and responsibilities, which demand safeguarding the security of Iraqis and the land of Iraq from all threats. So, we have some sort of a nominal deal with the Iraqi government to keep some of our troops there. But now we're just more trouble than we're worth. There's been over 150 attacks on our bases because we're arming and funding Israel doing a genocide. So this is the Shia militias trying to get back at us over that. And then we retaliate and start, attacking those militias. And now the bombing has spread into civilian territories. And they're like, look, we don't agree with you. We don't trust you. You're violating the terms of our agreement. Your ass has to get out. Will the U.S. actually listen? Highly doubt it. Highly doubt it. So this is some amazing news here. Instagram will stop recommending political content from accounts you don't follow. And one of the theories on that, this is a ploy to silence Palestinians and the information being spread. Look, I think I guess Instagram wants to avoid any of the pitfalls, any of the scandals that go hand in hand with an algorithm that promotes political stuff, because you could easily promote stuff that's insane, freakish, cultish, MAGA stuff. You could promote stuff that ends up being conspiracy theory. You can promote stuff that's pro-genocide in the sense that it agrees with Israel. You could promote stuff that's blowing the whistle in terms of saying, hey, there is a genocide going on, and look at what's happening to these Palestinians. And they just want to wash their hands of all of it. And they say, look, I think Crystal told me also that Threads was doing something similar. You know, Threads, like the Facebook or Meta version of Twitter. I think they're doing something similar. But correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe it was just Instagram. I'm not sure. But certainly not good. Certainly not good to just say, hey, you can discuss whatever you want except the most important things in the world, like global politics and attacks on civilians and religion and things of that nature. All right. So David Dole here says, rare credit to NBC News here for the correct headline on this story. Biden disparages Netanyahu in private, but hasn't significantly changed U.S. policy toward Israel and Gaza. Look, my guess is, again, there's been such an outcry over just how much they bias these titles. Because again, every day, every other day, we get, Biden is actually really upset by Netanyahu. Biden doesn't like Netanyahu very much. Biden is gravely concerned about the actions of Israel. Biden says civilians need to be protected better by Israel. You get those every day, and everybody's at their breaking point where they're like, who are you kidding? You're still arming them and funding them. Don't pretend like you're against it when you're facilitating it. They couldn't do it without your support. And so finally we get a headline that's like, okay, Biden apparently called Netanyahu an asshole, according to reports. Do I believe it? No, to be honest with you. But Biden allegedly called Netanyahu an asshole, but at least NBC is pointing out here, but that you haven't changed policy. So who cares what you call him? He probably doesn't even care what you call him, as long as you keep the money flowing and keep the weapons flowing. All right, and finally, this is wild. By the way, shout out to this guy, Cheyenne. He is the BBC. He's a journalist at BBC Verify. He's like a top-level fact-checker, if you will. And in my experience, he actually does a very, very good job. So he says, the official State of Israel account has posted this video saying it is facilitating aid into Gaza. A short clip at the end of the video, claiming to show tents and shelter equipment for Gazans, was actually filmed in March 2022, showing tents in Moldova for Ukrainian refugees. So Israel tweeted this out. 11,000 trucks, 140,000 tons of food, 1,000 water trucks, 17,000 tons of medical supplies, 23,000 tons of tents and shelter equipment. Israel will continue to facilitate the transfer of life-saving humanitarian aid to Gaza. Our war's with Hamas, not the people of Gaza. And they show this. This is not Israel doing humanitarian aid for Palestinians. Like I told you, Israel has blocked 70% of the humanitarian aid that's supposed to get in. Now, even with the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, saying you have to allow in all the humanitarian aid, they're not letting it all in. But they're lying about it in the meantime. They're lying about it. They're trying to pretend, oh, yes, no, we care about the civilians, bro. Look at what we're doing, even though this isn't what we're doing. This was Moldova and Ukrainians. But, bro, we care, we care. They say that as they're continuing to bomb ambulances and mosques and bombing innocent civilians, telling them to evacuate when there's literally nowhere else to evacuate. I've never seen such a clear example of brazen lies. They're lying to everybody time and time again. So there you have it, man. Don't look away. Don't look away. Like I told you, during the Superbowl is when they unleashed this bombing campaign on Rafa. That was on purpose. They didn't want Western audiences to see it. They want to hide it. During the Super Bowl, they unleashed a bombing campaign, killed massive numbers of innocent civilians, and at the same time had Stop Anti-Semitism ads running during the Super Bowl. I've never seen a low this low. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.